Okay, so it's been a couple minutes. We could get started. Anybody else that joins in the meantime, I'll admit them directly into the room. So as you know, we're here to discuss a couple ordinance changes. We just wanted some full transparency as to what's being proposed at the council meeting, what's up for adoption on Tuesday, June 14th. Just to introduce a few people, in the municipal building, we have Councilwoman O'Donnell, Deputy Mayor Richmond, Township Attorney Caitlin Harney, and Joseph Clark, attorney and manager. We also have Jen Beam from Leon Avakian, who is the township planner, and also our planning board and zoning board planner. So we're pretty well represented here to answer any questions we have. We'll start off, Jen, do you want to do a quick presentation on the ordinance, or would you like me to bring up some materials? You're on mute too, Jen.
It might, so the question is that do we want to go through all 10, or are there specific ordinances that?
I think this is just the Yellowbrook Road, so SED 2 and the overlay zoning on Yellowbrook Road. I can bring those ordinances up if you'd like.
Yep.
So we had them as listed as O-22-25 and O-22-27.
That's right, that's correct.
Okay.
So just to start, if you can all see, this is the proposed SED 2 zone zoning. So Jen, if you want to present that.
So throughout our master plan process, we were looking at the entirety of the town and the appropriateness of the zoning, understanding the nature of a good portion of Yellowbrook Road. We had placed a recommendation to add an overlay. This is not taking the place of the underlying zoning. It's just an overlay, basically from the northern boundary of the existing SED zone to Yellowbrook Road's intersection with 33. The uses are identified, and Matt has them up on the screen. And as you can see, there's no warehousing other than self-storage that would be permitted. It just provides additional uses along that stretch of the roadway as it moves to the north to intersect with 33. It does allow some conditional uses as well, some of which are existing in the SED as it stands today. But we've added like trade contractor and landscaping businesses. We have found that there are a number of properties in and around this area that are kind of a mixed use in the non-traditional way, whereas there's a house on the front of the property, and then in the back there's either a pole barn or some kind of oversized garage shed where, you know, businesses are being run, and those individuals have come and received approvals over the years. So this would be the proposal. That's generally 22-25. 27 accompanies it. It just identifies the properties to be rezoned. So one sets the standards, which is the 22-25, and the other just identifies by block and lot the properties that would have this overlay zoning as a part of it. And I think, go ahead.
Sorry, Jen, just to supplement a little bit, because we throw out some terms. When we do an overlay zone, Jen had mentioned we're keeping both zones. It's an either or situation. So you'll have the ARE6, which is the 6-acre minimum lot size residential zoning underneath. And then if anybody has a house in that zone, they'll be able to continue to use it as a permitted use. There's no, they're not losing any rights through this. What they are gaining is the ability to develop it in accordance with this new ordinance, SED2, with these uses. If they wanted to do that, they would have to abandon or get rid of residential use and develop fully commercially. If they wanted to do a both or a mixed use type thing, they're still going to be looking at variances, because the ordinance has other provisions which says you can only have one use on a lot and you can't have mixed use like that. Also, if you may remember, a couple of years ago, there was an SED light zone proposed here. This SED2 zone, the SED light was meant to take away some of the heavy duty industrial commercial uses in the SED zone. This SED2 pretty much watered it down even more. So we took out even more of the commercial industrial uses. A lot of the manufacturing uses are gone. Only one remains out of the list of maybe 15. Warehousing is gone. Distribution centers, all of those things are gone. We've mostly tried to make this a commercial zone with some variety in uses, like the craft distillery, the microbrewery, to bring in some more modern uses, as well as just a mix of that commercial industrial and what we think is appropriate for the area near Route 33. Jen, do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I don't necessarily think that we need to go through ordinance 22-27 unless there's a specific question, because like I said, it's really just a list of lots that would be included in this recommendation.
Yeah, I'll bring up the map one more time. We're talking about proposal 18 here. So it's proposal 7 is the current SED zone. Proposal 18, like Janet said, is pretty much everything that was north of the existing SED up to about Route 33.
So this is Joe Clark. I just wanted to jump in on a couple points too. And, you know, in addition to the master plan reexamination that sort of drove the reconfiguration of various uses throughout the town, we had spoken with Naval Station Earl at various points in time. And given the proximity of these particular zones to Earl, they had encouraged us to sort of plan for lower density type uses. So that's why you have an ARE6 along with a less intense SED2 overlay. And the second thing that I want to point out is if you look at the prohibited uses, because I think this was a concern on somebody's part, the prohibited uses in this SED2 overlay specifically states all the prohibited uses as per 188-79B5. So if you look at that ordinance, and I'll have to pull it up very quickly, it specifically says that things like asphalt production and concrete are prohibited. So those prohibited uses would remain prohibited in the SED2 overlay. So you're not going to get that. You're not going to get a concrete plant there.
So that's the basis and the technical information regarding the ordinance. We have a few residents on, I believe, of Equestria. If we want to open up to any questions, you can take yourself off mute. I mean, there's 3 of you, I believe, right now. So if you want to just try and see if we can, keep it organized, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions.
I'm wondering, I'm Patty Schleig from Equestria. Good morning. Thank you for having this. I'm wondering why there's a need to change the zone. When we purchased the property, we came to the town and we checked what those proposals were for the property. And that is one of the reasons that we purchased our home, realizing that it was not going to be dense and it was going to be, what's AR6 or it was 6 acres, whatever it was. Why now is there a need to change? We have the other end of Yellowbrook is being intensely, everything is demolished. The traffic that is going to be coming from that is going to be ridiculous. So why are we changing? Is somebody want to sell their property and they want to have, more varied uses? I don't understand. If you have something, why bother changing it?
Sure, so I can answer that a little bit. This is not geared to any specific property owner. In fact, the SED2 zone that we're creating is going to be used elsewhere in town, not just on Yellowbrook Road. So there is a bigger picture to the SED2 overall. This area in particular, because it has that heavy duty industrial commercial use in the existing SED zone, it doesn't make a lot of planning sense to have your most rural zone directly adjacent to that, where most of the traffic is flowing through to Route 33. In the history of the town, going back into the 80s, that section of Yellowbrook Road used to be industrial. That's why we have some different uses on that stretch already, including a dog kennel. We also have a construction yard from the 1980s that was permitted as a permitted use. There's a couple other commercial uses in there, and those are holdovers from when the industrial commercial zoning was back in the day. So doing the overlay now, we're kind of giving both opportunities for growth, and if the residential use, which is becoming less compatible with the heavy duty commercial to the south, if that if the owners wish to sell and develop commercially, they have that ability to do so now.
I also want to add that, there's a statutory requirement in the municipal land use law that requires each town to relook at their master plan at least every 10 years, if not more often. And the requirement is because, things change and they need to be revised and relooked at. So, taking what Matt has said and then marrying it to what Joe Clark said about what's going on the naval base and looking at existing land use patterns, the recommendation of the planning board at this time was to change. So, just because it once was, doesn't mean it will always remain. I think the whole purpose of the master plan efforts and revising and revisiting them is because things change, and to reconcile, the policy decisions at the governing body level with what's happening in the day-to-day. So that was why that was looked at and recommended.
This is Deputy Mayor Richmond. I'm going to piggyback to the professionals and give you a little background to ensure that you guys know that this was not just done in a week or a month. This has been something that our professionals, Jen and Matt and Joe and our planning board have looked at thoroughly. I think, Jen, if I'm right, about 6 months you guys spent.
At least, I think it was closer to a year. We've been
close to a year. I mean, really, the last 6 months, they've been really nailing down what's best for the town as a whole, instead of just one area. So I can assure you, between our planners, our engineers, our attorneys, planning board, all the professionals, they have thought this through. And again, the decisions that have been made are what's best for the entire town, and not just, a certain area. So I just needed to make sure that, you understand that these professionals, engineers, they've been looking at this master plan, circulation plan, traffic study, all these things are looked at very thoroughly. I've sat in a meeting or two. I was on the planning board, as was Councilman O'Donnell. So we know what goes into this, and it's not to hurt any specific area, any specific development. It's for the betterment of the town going forward.
And even more so, as I think you could see through what we've included in this ordinance, we're listening to the townspeople, we're listening to the residents nearby. The warehousing is gone, the distribution centers are gone. The SED light was proposed, I think, right at the end of 2019, right before COVID. But we started to get the feeling and see the market trends as to what was going on, and that ordinance was not passed by the council, and probably rightfully so, because ever since then, the market for warehousing space has dramatically changed. So we didn't even want to put that as a possibility in this section. Like I said, we watered down a lot of the commercial uses that might be higher impact, and we've left what we feel is a good mix between both.
Well, if I may speak.
Sure.
My name is John Doherty. I chair the Equestria Civics Issues Committee, and we have been opposed to this since the ordinance in December 2020. I don't think it's the pick and choose of the industries. For the Equestria residents affected and within 200 feet, it's having an industry in your backyard, having a distillery or having parking. It's not the list. Yes, those other categories that you had listed for that were acceptable in the past for an SED zone. We're just affected as much as anybody on Yellowbrook Road. It would affect our backyards if we look out. The traffic on Yellowbrook is bad now. 3/4 of the road has industry. I mean, this property, ARE6, you were talking about, back in the 80s, but it changed in the 80s to ARE6, and it has remained the same. I'm sorry, but ours is in opposition, and if you want to hear what the residents think, we had 26 lots affected and 23 people opposed in the form of a petition, and Equestra that owns Common Area had also opposed this and sent in a petition. So I want you to recognize how the residents feel, not some company that may possibly own space there, or for some home that might have the next door neighbors being industrial on one side and maybe a home on the other side. I think you have to recognize that. We're very serious about our approach to this, and we think there'll be more petitions that'll be coming before your Tuesday night meeting. Thank you.
May I just also add, the traffic on Highway 33 is horrendous. Whether you live on Equestra East, Equestra West, or any of those other streets that are flowing out onto from that area. Yellowbrook Road, you just can't get out. And I'm not talking about pulling out and turning right. Pulling out and turning right is almost impossible. And there are certain times during the day, the peak times, which are becoming more peak times, where it's ridiculous. You can't get out. You can't turn left, and turning right, figuring, well, I'll go down to the light and then I'll make a U. It's impossible. So it's going to be, the traffic is going to be hazardous. It's now, I think, the worst I've ever seen. And I've been a Monmouth County resident for more than 70 years. And I just can't even imagine more industry, more businesses flowing out of Yellowbrook Road and congesting even further Highway 33. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? I think we have one more person on. No. Jen, you're muted.
Mr. Bloodgood, I think you're muted. Did you have any comments? You're muted. We can't hear you.
How's that?
Better.
Okay, so my comment was no comment.
Okay. Thank you.
So Joe, Councilwoman, Deputy Mayor, do you have any further comments? I think that's everybody that's on the call and that's available right now.
Sure. So I have just sort of a quick comment as well. And I think it was probably at the behest of some of the residents of Equestra, but we did have a conference call not that long ago. It might be about 6 months ago with Assemblyman Thompson about Route 33. I just want to remind everybody, the township doesn't control that road. That's a state road. It's a chronic issue and the state is aware of it. We're hoping, that our assembly people are focusing the state on the impact of it because it does need upgrading. Unfortunately, if it was up to us, we'd already have it in our capital budget and we'd have it done. But it's a state issue and we're sort of hamstrung by their approach to it, which is to say they just kind of let it sit on us. So
I might add that Assemblyman Thompson has been helping us fight with the DOT over the 33-34 U-turn across from JB Steiner. That is atrocious.
That's dangerous as well. I agree.
yeah, absolutely. It is things like that sort of drive some of our decisions too, in terms of the intensification of uses or not. But like Mr. Howard had said, there's a history of this type of stuff up there, and we thought that given sort of the way that the world is changing, like Ms. Beam had said, the review. Powell has suffered for years from sort of patchwork zoning, I think, and you have sort of this, mix of uses that abut each other in places that don't, that I think we could all agree may not make sense. So we had to try and start at a point, and it sort of makes sense to have this SED2 overlay because A, it's less intense uses, B, it's compatible with some of what's going on there, and C, it doesn't necessarily, increase an already heavy traffic flow. So, right now, we will see what comes through the door on that, but, our planning and zoning professionals are always very, very, very cognizant of those types of issues, so.
What kind of pressures can the town put on the state to make some adjustments to the traffic?
Sure, that's a great question, and the answer is we also are working with Assemblyman Thompson, to try and get pressure at the state level. We're working with him. Assemblyman Keene has an interest in this as well. We are working with everybody who will listen. Senator Singer, it's been a long time problem, and the state's answer, unfortunately, is if you have the money, we'll approve the project, you pay for it. And our view on that is that is a non-answer. It is a state issue and it requires a state response, and it shouldn't be placed on the backs of Howell taxpayers to rectify an issue that the state created. So we will continue to put pressure on them. I appreciate Equestra's efforts in that. I know your Civics Committee is very, very engaged. I mean, the fact that we had multiple people reach out tells me that there was a meeting about our ordinances and people in your community care. And so hopefully, maybe after all of this, we can sit down and come up with a plan to sort of petition the state to get more, more funds dedicated to Route 33 improvements.
I just also this is Councilwoman Evelyn O'Donnell. We are totally aware that Highway 33 and Highway 9 are thoroughfares for every state on the East Coast. So not only do we struggle with what we have within our town, we struggle with those people that travel through our state, and 33-9 seem to be very heavily trafficked. So we do try to work very viciously with those people that are in office. And I do believe that they are on our side, but as a group of one or two people, you and I both know it's very difficult to get groups of people to give money to do the right thing sometimes. 33 is an atrocity. Major problem being Earl owns a great deal of property that borders Highway 33. So now we work with another government agency, which only doubles and intensifies the issues on that particular area. So not that we are not aware, we are thoroughly aware, and we are really trying to do everything we can to move heaven and hell for this. And it is difficult. And as you know, even when Equestria was built, we heard from other residents in the community, what's that traffic going to bring to Highway 33? So I understand what you're saying. It is a common and chronic concern of residents. When any community is built, it is more traffic. So your concerns were those concerns before you, those other communities and residents. And if you've been here for 70 years, in this county, you are well aware of the changes. Oh, yeah. So we are struggling to try to make a good portion of this a healthier community for us. But rest assured, we are aware, we are doing our very best. But thank you.
I did a little research, and it's probably not the best thing, but what Ms. Beam and Mr. Howard have worked on the circulation development plan, I noticed that between 2015 and 2020, 23% of all accidents occurred at that U-turn that I had just described before, 33 and 34, and Tinton Falls Road, which is about 50 feet from the U-turn. 23% of all accidents in Howell. That's,
We are aware of that, yes.
There's nobody in this room that's going to disagree that that's the worst intersection.
I
in
I
town.
know, and the answers that we've been getting from DOT and Assemblyman Thompson is that when we make recommendations, the answer is you don't even make the list of 100. So that's the way to get us from not continuing. And I've been personally continuing of this fight since 2018, and we're still not going to stop. So
Good.
I think that's, just to give you a little context too, the DOT was supposed to widen Route 66 that goes from the ocean to its intersection with 33 in like 1995.
Yeah.
And now they're saying maybe 2025. So I don't agree with it, but it's a chronic issue when dealing with these agencies that, you know, they had plans and everything. So that's like already done. And they just haven't done the widening. They have the right of way, everything. It's been 30, 40 years. They still haven't done anything.
You wonder where the money goes.
That's for sure.
It's an unfortunate situation. I mean, it impacts all of us. Like, you know, it's astonishing that it doesn't make the list of the top 100. And so that tells you about some of their priorities and what they're confronted with at that level. It's unfortunate. I mean, I would think that there should be some more, you know, some more examination down here, but it's a difficult situation. And so you see that's some of the reason too. I mean, it is a state road, as is 9, and that's kind of some of the mindset in putting some of those uses there, as it gets traffic onto those roads and out of Howell as quickly as possible as well. I know it leads to an intensification for Equestra and for some of the other people in the area, but it's sort of a way of balancing out the fact that we want traffic to be lighter everywhere it can possibly be, and this is one sort of solution to it. And just to key off what Councilwoman O'Donnell said before, I can almost guarantee you that if Equestra were proposed today, it wouldn't be allowed to be built up there because of the additional traffic and the additional considerations that need to be given to communities with that sort of density to it. But it's there, and it's something that we have to take into consideration, and it was taken into consideration during the process. And you know, there's a balance that we feel we struck with the existence of this overlay that sort of balances everybody's competing interests as best as possible while still moving the township forward in sort of a positive way for the future.
Is it true that years ago, 33 was approved to be widened?
Not
Anybody comment on that, or I've heard?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not 100% sure. We can certainly look into that, but it would have to be widened on the southbound side unless the federal government gave up a substantial amount of property at Earl, which I don't foresee happening. So I don't know that, you know, it may have been discussed. I mean, I can certainly look into that for you if you'd like, but it may have been discussed, but I haven't heard about that. And I've been in town a long time. And I mean, clearly not 70 years, but I've been in town a while. And I have not heard that discussed, at least in the past 15 years.
Nor have I, to the point of plans or any type of right-of-way acquisition. I don't think that was done.
I've never heard of it that either.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree. It would be great if it was 2 lanes in either direction. I think that would solve a lot of problems, and they put lights at these strategic intersections. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
We were initially told, I'm going to say within the last 4 or 5 years, that a light was going to be installed, and I understand this is the state again, a light was going to be installed at the corner of Yellowbrook, and that too has not happened. So I understand the town is working on putting pressure, but man, we have to find a way that we can get everybody to get on their backs, because this is ridiculous. And I know I'm not solving anything, I'm just
No, I-
reiterating what our
I-
problem is.
I agree with you. I think that, it's the responsiveness is problematic, and the only recommendation I could give is just stay at them, you know what I mean? So it's not exactly, I'm sure, the answer you want, and not the answer we want either, honestly. But at this point, I don't really know any other, like, the town is doing everything they physically can with the legislators, et cetera, to, go up the chain of command to the DOT. It's just really difficult.
If we don't have anything else, I guess we can end the meeting. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to myself. I think my contact information is out there, and of course, for public comment on Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Same here. Feel free, email, call, whatever you need.
Just for the record, just for the three of you that are on here, I had gotten a lot of emails and I responded to every single one of them and invited them to this Zoom. So thank you for coming and not wasting your time and our time. Those that could not attend, they had asked me, how they get the information. So this is being recorded. I did speak to our attorney, Caitlin over here, and Mr. Clark, and the link will be available. So it would be really helpful for us if you can share this Zoom meeting once it's ready to go with your neighbors and the residents. And John, I know you said you're on the civics committee. I reached out to Don. I can share the link with them. I don't know the best way to get this video out. Hopefully it'll help with some of your concerns and your neighbors' concerns. And if not, then obviously you can reach out to Mr. Howard or Mr. Clark, Jen, directly. But I think maybe this video, this information session would help have a better understanding of what we're looking to do and why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, I'd be glad to inform the residents if, and I'll send my email address to Mr. Howard.
Sounds
Is that
good.
okay?
John, did I email you?
I don't think so.
I think it's best to have one clearinghouse and have it go through Matt. That way we know that everybody is being distributed the same information. And, again, on Tuesday night at the public hearing, comments, questions, whatever, we welcome, anybody and everybody to come and express what their concerns are, for sure.
Thank you for providing this session for us today. Appreciate that.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.